The Phantom was built in Derby, England, and Springfield, Massachusetts, in the United States. There were several differences in specification between the English and American Phantoms. The Phantom was replaced by the Phantom II in 1929. The designation Phantom I was never used by Rolls-Royce. It is a construct of enthusiasts applied to help distinguish it from other generations with the same model name. Introduced in 1925, the new Phantom was Rolls-Royce's second 40/50ths of a horsepower model. To differentiate between the 40/50ths of a horsepower models, Rolls-Royce named the new model New Phantom, and renamed the old model Silver Ghost, which was the name given to their demonstration example, registration number AX201. The name Phantom was a nod to the previous, Silver Ghost, remarking on the vehicle's extraordinary stealth and quietness in comparison to other vehicles offered at the time. When the new Phantom was replaced by another 40/50ths of a horsepower model in 1929, the replacement was named Phantom II and the new Phantom was commonly referred to as Phantom I to this day. While Rolls-Royce themselves did not use the term Phantom I until their recent acquisition by BMW Group, new Phantoms were referred to as Sizaire period and are commonly called Phantom I by enthusiasts, concours events, and owners' clubs. One major improvement over the Silver Ghost was the new pushrod OHV straight-six engine. Constructed as two groups of 3 cylinders with a single detachable head, the engine was described by Rolls-Royce as producing sufficient power. The engine used a 4 +1/4 in 108.0 mm bore and underscore 5 +1/2 in 139.7 mm stroke for a total of 7.7 L, 7,668 cc, 467.9 cu-in of displacement. In 1928, the cylinder heads were upgraded from cast iron to aluminium. This caused corrosion problems. The separate gearbox connected through a rubberized fabric flexible coupling to the clutch and through a torque tube enclosed drive to the differential at rear, as in the Silver Ghost. The new Phantom used the same frame as the Silver Ghost, with semi-elliptical springs suspending the front axle, and cantilever springs suspending the rear axle. 4-wheel brakes with a servo assistance system licensed from Hispano-Suiza were also specified, though some early US models lacked front brakes. Like the Silver Ghost, the new Phantom was constructed both at Rolls-Royce's Derby factory in the United Kingdom and at a factory in Springfield, Massachusetts in the United States. The US factory produced new Phantoms from 1926 to 1931. Principal differences between the US and UK models included wheelbases and transmissions. Both versions were specified with the same standard 143 +1/2 in 3,645 mm wheelbase. The long wheelbase US model was 146 +1/2 in 3,721 mm, and the UK 150 +1/2 in 3,823 mm. Both versions used a single dry plate clutch, with US models equipped with a center change 3-speed transmission and UK a 4-speed. Other minor differences include fuel gauge placement, with the UK new Phantoms at the tank but some US models having one on the dash, and manual central lubrication systems. The UK Phantom employed a nose nipples, sometimes as many as 50, which required attachment of a special nose oil pressure gun and needed time-consuming service at 500, 1,000 and 2,000 mile intervals. The US model used a centralized beadure system which lubricated all the oiling points with a stroke of a single pump. Only the chassis and mechanical parts were produced by Rolls-Royce. The body was made and fitted by a coachbuilder selected by the owner. Park Ward was founded in 1919 by William MacDonald Park and Charles Ward. They had worked together at F.W. Berwick Limited, the makers of Sizaire-Berwick cars. They built their first Rolls-Royce body in 1920. After producing bodies for a variety of cars in the early 1920s, Park Ward became particularly associated with W O Bentley's new business, manufacturing their chassis nearby at Cricklewood. In 1922, they were asked by Rolls-Royce to take part in a scheme to make standard bodies for their small 20 model, but the project was abandoned, although they did build bespoke bodies for Rolls-Royce customers exhibiting a 40 to 50 model at the British Empire exhibition in 1924. From the mid-1920s, the company started to concentrate on Bentley and Rolls-Royce models. By 1930, 90% of all of Park Ward's efforts were for Rolls-Royce. After the Rolls-Royce takeover of Bentley in 1931, Rolls-Royce took a stake in Park Ward. Beginning in 1933, when they obtained patents, Park Ward developed a technically interesting all-steel saloon in conjunction with Rolls-Royce, and from 1936 offered it on the 4.25-litre Bentley chassis. These bodies were supported by silent block rubber bushes to reduce road shock engine noise and vibration. The cars were produced in small batches, giving quite noticeable economies in manufacture, with a consequent reduction in selling price. By 1937, as many as 10 cars a week were passing through Park Ward's works, and in 1939, Rolls-Royce completed its acquisition of the business. 3. After World War II, Park Ward continued to produce special coachwork, and the all-steel technology was used by Rolls-Royce to produce a standard body range on its cars, starting with the Bentley Mark VI. 20 years later, Park Ward was merged with H.J. Mulliner and Company in 1961 to form Mulliner Park Ward. Mulliner Park Ward operations were centralized in the former Park Ward factory in Willesden. In 1971, the division was retitled Rolls-Royce Motors Limited. British coachbuilders who produced bodies for new Phantoms included Barker, Park Ward, Windovers, Thrupp and Mabley, Mulliner, Hooper. Continental houses such as Sauchik, Henry Binder and Kellner in Paris, Erdmann and Rossi in Berlin, Balthazar Fiol in Spain, Nordberg in Sweden and the Italian coachbuilder Zagato also produced coachwork for the new Phantom, just to name a few. Despite the availability of a US-built chassis, a handful of British-made Phantoms were outfitted with American coachwork. American Phantoms could be bought with standardized bodies from Brewster and Company, which was owned by Rolls-Royce after 1926, and additional coachwork choices were available from Fleetwood. Several coachwork choices were listed, or just a plain chassis could be provided for $13,335 United States dollars, $236,619 in 2023 dollars. A fended chassis was also available, while coachwork choices were listed by different city names in England. These include the Derby Touring Sedan, Ascot Phaeton, York Roadster, Huntington Limousine, Henley Convertible, Avon Sedan, Newmarket Convertible Sedan, Chatsworth Town Car, and the French city of Trouville Town Car. A convertible sedan with coachwork from Hibbard and Darren was also offered, as were other French-made bodies by the same coachbuilder. They were shipped to the United States and subsequently mounted on Springfield. The Rolls-Royce Phantom was Rolls-Royce's replacement for the original Silver Ghost. Introduced as the new Phantom in 1925, the Phantom had a larger engine than the Silver Ghost and used pushrod-operated overhead valves instead of the Silver Ghost side valves. The Phantom was built in Derby, England, and Springfield, Massachusetts, in the United States. There were several differences in specification between the English and American Phantoms. Thanks for watching History of Rolls-Royce Phantom Classic version.